At this particular point, the plan, we're going to have a TIFA commission presentation, and then we're going to take about a 5-minute break for the council members, everybody else.
Council Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I introduce Cindy King? She's our interim controller.
Yes,
before you-
absolutely, absolutely. So just give me just 1 second, just 1 second. So then we'll take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll go ahead and start our regular council meeting for those in the audience. So, Tom, if you don't mind, ladies always first. Come on up. Yeah, by the podium. And the
Hi.
mayor will go ahead and introduce you. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
She could, she's at,
All right.
she's got the mic, so.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cindy King. I am the interim for the comptroller right now for Dearborn Heights. I am taking over for David Sabuda.
Well, welcome.
Nice
I hope you
to
stay
meet
a
all of
long, long
yous.
time.
Thank you.
Welcome to the team. Looking forward to working together.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom, please do the full introduction and what this is specifically about.
All right, well, thank you. I'm Tom Bosco, the TIFA administrator. Just want to take the opportunity to run through our budget for this year. That's on your agenda. Offered to the council chair, my availability, and he thought it was a good idea.
Tom, I'm going to interrupt you for just a sec. So the question I get asked all the time, I know what it is. But for those in the audience, including my son that asked me, so for those in the audience, those on Zoom, if you could just give it just at least a sentence or two as to what TIFA is, so that members of the audience can at least know what that is before we continue with the budget, please.
Sure. TIFA is the Tax Increment Finance Authority, which is basically an economic development entity that works with the city in the southwest quadrant of Dearborn Heights. We get a portion of the property taxes that would otherwise go to other outside entities, and we are able to keep them in the city and reinvest back into that TIFA district, which is through infrastructure improvements and business grants and things of the such to help improve the values of the city in that area.
Okay, so instead of the taxes going to other entities, we keep them in-house here, and then the TIFA board will make decisions as far as where those funds are spent within our city.
Yep, within the TIFA district specifically.
Correct, within the TIFA districts. At this particular point, Tom's going to go ahead and give us a presentation as far as what they've come up with.
All righty, so you have the proposed budget in your packets. It was approved by the TIFA board, and by state law, then we present it to you to the city council for approval. I'll run through the sections, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask as I'm going through. I'll start at the top with the revenue. Some of these numbers you've seen before as part of the city budget, so you'll probably recognize some of them. The TIF revenue, the tax capture is estimated to be $2,307,058. We anticipate an income of $95,000 from the courts. A quick explanation on that is on each ticket that the court issues, there's a fee that goes towards help paying the bond of the Justice Center, which is actually TIFA's bond that we pay, and then we're reimbursed this money each year from that income. And then we have the fund balance appropriation. Basically, we're taking from our fund balance to help with some projects this year. I'll get into that when we get into the expenses. Under the expenses, you'll see our big ones that are our first priority are the bonds. So we have the Justice Center principal and interest lines there. Those come right off, it's our first priority. And also the library bond, we pay approximately 42% of the JFK Library construction bond each year. So that number reflects that estimate for this coming year. Then under our operating expenses, our administration is $277,500, and what makes that up is the contribution to the city for administration, money aside in case we need attorneys, consultants, office supplies, mileage, and salaries, benefits, and FICA. So that's all in the administration line. Then under our projects, this is kind of the guts of what we go for every year. That we TIFA tries to do our good works in the city. We have the Westwood Schools capital improvements. $85,000 anticipated to resurface the track at Robichaud High School. We're anticipating doing it this year, but the company, as you know, a lot of companies just can't get workers and can't do the jobs, so they notified the school district it won't happen until next year. Industrial park improvements, we have $10,000 aside for that. Commercial rehab program, which is our grant program for businesses, we have $50,000 aside for that. Fire station improvements, and talking with the chief, there are a couple, one large project that really needs to be done at the South End Fire Station, which is replacing all the doors and the motors as it is now. One of the doors, he said, somebody has to go by hand and open the door every time they have to go on a call, so we're gonna help them with replacing those. Justice Center improvements, we put a substantial number there, $250,000. In talking with the administration, a nice thing we have coming up now, you know, the administration's putting together this capital improvements plan, and this is one of those projects that's going to be part of that, where we're going to participate because we can help with the Justice Center, with the 911 call center, the dispatch. We're able to help out in that regard, so we put $250,000 estimated for that for next year. Tree trimming, every year we do a tree trimming in the TIFA district. We have it basically on a 5-year cycle, so we're able to get the trees between the sidewalk and the curb trimmed once every 5 years, so that each year $25,000 covers that. We are paying for a TIFA full-time ordinance officer coming up this year. The salary for one. Used to be in the past we would help pay for the part-timers that would be assigned down there, but it was always difficult because, you know, after so many months the part-timer gets trained, but then they have to leave. You bring in another part-timer, have to train them, then they leave. So the mayor asked if we could consider funding a full-time ordinance officer, which the board agreed to. So we have $35,000 towards their salary. Right-of-way maintenance and repair, we put a substantial amount in there, the $300,000. $50,000 for the maintenance of our properties and whatnot, and then the $250,000 as part of the capital improvements plan that the city's doing. Mainly talking with the city engineer about if there'd be any needing any funding for bridges and roads that are in the TIFA district. We can help with that. It's part of our approved projects. So we put a substantial amount there to help with that this coming year. Daily park improvements, we have $10,000 for there in case it's needed there. Van Born commercial improvements, again, in anticipation of the Van Born corridor project taking off and getting some steam, we have $100,000 ready to go to help with that project. DPW improvements, as you know, the DPW headquarters in the South End is in great need of some TLC, so we have $100,000 approved to be able to help there. Beach Daily improvements, $10,000. As you know, we have the Beach Daily Central Business District corridor down just north of Van Born. We try to help keep that up at time to time. Crime prevention, there hasn't been really much activity, but we still have $1,000 there in case it's needed. Library improvements, there's a couple projects that are needed at the library that we're aware of, one of which is another exit door, emergency exit door, near the children's section, I believe, that they feel would be a good idea in case of emergency to be able to exit the building quickly. So that's part of it. And then there's also talk possibly of a new sign to go in there. Out front, the sign that they have is currently on its last leg, so we would approve that funding for that. And then contingency for any overages that may happen or unforeseen expenses that the board deems necessary. So overall, our budget is $2.9 million, and it's kind of straightforward. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Tom, I've got a question. Please explain to me, the fund balance appropriation was a drastic increase in the proposed budget versus this year's budget. And the other question I had is, in regards to the expenses under operating expenses, you put them down, but I'm not sure, I mean, it says here there's, 138.5, 5,000, et cetera. But that total amount, how is that any different from the 2021-22 budget?
Okay, so first, the fund balance appropriation, basically that was basically going into our savings to apply towards those larger projects that we're anticipating for this year. We've got quite a bit of money in our fund balance. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $5 million. So we want to dip into that and start spending it, you know. Now that we have the capital funds, capital improvements plan going forward. So this is just the start, actually. These are the numbers that we were given this year, and into the future, you know, we can increase that too. But that's basically dipping into the savings to help pay for these larger
But if you have
projects.
5 million in there, why would a lot more of that not be used?
Well, because, like say, for example, with the bridges and the roads, talking with the city engineer, I said, how much do you need? And he said, well, this year, because they're still working on the plan, he said, this year, put $250,000, and then we can, because it's going to be a multi-year process.
No, I understand, but I'm saying since the TIFA funds come in on a yearly basis, and I'm just thinking out loud here, I'm not so much questioning, just thinking out loud. Why would more of those funds not be used in the TIFA district to improve it instead of just sitting there in the bank
yeah, well-
earning pennies on the dollar?
Yeah, well, it kind of grew over the past few years, because of the COVID.
COVID.
Everything shut down. I mean, there was just nothing happening. And then, you know, when the new administration came in, we wanted to wait and get their input before just trying to run out and do stuff. So that's why we're waiting for the capital improvements plan, because that's really going to be a great tool to kind of guide funds where they're most needed. So now that we have the plan in place, which we never really had in the past, it was just kind of by happenstance in years past. So now that we're going to have the plan in place, you'll see a lot more. That's where we're trying to draw that money down now. And bring
I
it more-
understand what you're saying, but I disagree. For
Okay.
public record. Okay.
But, yeah, but I mean, another thing is, see, we can't just go out and build the bridge. We have to wait for the city to do it and say, hey, we need the money. So that's where, you know, that money's been piling up because, you know, over the years, I mean, obviously with the COVID and whatnot, the city hasn't been doing these projects or whatnot, so.
No, I understand, but a $5 million amount is pretty alarming to me, at least.
Yeah. Well, we always keep, it's always been practiced to keep at least 1 to 2 years of bonds payments in savings, and because, you know, that's our first and foremost issue is the bonds. If the city gets into, so we were already at, like, usually we keep around 2 million in there, but then like the past few years, that money's been piling because of the inactivity. So, because we're limited, there's only certain projects we're allowed to do by law, by our TIFA plan. We can't just pay for anything, or there's only certain things that we have to fit in. So, like with, say, the DPW, for years we've been putting $100,000 towards that, but the past DPW director just never spent it, you know, or the Van Born project hasn't happened. So that money just gets kind of put back in the fund balance. And we're wanting to spend it, but we can't be the ones to, you know, we can't be the ones to tear up a road or something. We have to wait for those people responsible to do it, and we're happy to fund those projects.
Okay, I mean, you know, one that comes to mind is maybe the golf course. I don't know if there's.
Not in the TIFA district.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
correct.
See,
correct.
TIFA district is everything south of Michigan Avenue and west of Telegraph. So it's the southwest quadrant of Dearborn Heights. So that's all we can fund is things in those.
There's an area of Tifa, isn't there, near Haas and Telegraph, or no?
Nope. You're thinking maybe Brownfield.
Brownfield, correct.
Brownfield's a whole separate entity,
correct.
and that covers the whole city.
Correct,
Yeah,
Correct.
but that's on a per project basis.
correct. And then those expenses that, in the operating expenses, how is that any different between 2021-22 budget versus 22-23?
Well, basically, the main kind of things were this, because the anticipated revenue has gone up, the TIF revenue, that raised the city contribution a bit. Then the other big difference was in the salaries, benefits, and FICA. For some reason, in the years past, and I wasn't involved in setting it up, they had a different way of, I guess, accounting for the full-time benefits package and stuff. So this year, it was identified to just put it in this line, in the administration line. So that's why there's a pretty significant increase there. That's covering like the full-time pension and healthcare and stuff, all in that line.
I see.
So,
Councilman.
Real quick, Tom, you're doing a great job with that TIFA money and the way you distribute it. All those things you said were really important matters. One that really struck home was the ordinance officer. Mr. Mayor, do we have the ordinance officer working yet, or what's the plan?
We're waiting for this budget, for this to get approved, so.
Okay. Good job.
thanks. Well, I just want to say the board, you know, it's a team effort. There's a lot of, you know, we have a lot of dedicated board members. Some have been there a long time, some are newer, but everybody's, I think, a great contributor, and we're happy to have, a team effort and working with the city. City's a great team member too in the whole thing, so.
Councilman, go ahead.
Sorry, sir. I have a question about the money we're not spending. Are we waiting on the master plan, or can we spend it now?
Well,
So, Councilman, as Tom indicated, it is in the master plan. It's the capital improvement plan. That is a byproduct of the master plan. But the reason for all the money that was not spent is because we did not have a plan in place that says basically where we're headed and what we needed to get done. So one of the first things that we did in the new administration is to collectively get the input of all the departments, including Tom, and get a capital improvement plan, multi-year plan that will basically put us on, identify the needs that we have, and then prioritize them, and then put them in order. So some things must be done prior to other things can be, so you have to organize all this. So that, we already put that in place, and we have an initial 5-year capital improvement program, which is what indicated on some of the projects that we saw. We gathered information from all the departments. So that's already taken place. Master plan comes and there will be augmented, so there'll be additional capital improvement. But we wanted to start because we had to have a roadmap. We needed to identify, and going forward, you're not going to have some money unused. It will all be programmed in.
All right, please.
Yes, sir.
Something to keep in mind, Ecorse Creek. I mean, that's, I
Love that
presume, within the TIFA district, obviously, and we got to do something,
Yes,
something to the Ecorse Creek.
yes.
And I know it's on the radar for the administration, but since there's 5 million available, I don't know what can be used, but let's put that to good use.
So that's my daily thing. That's that, yes, yes.
Okay,
I agree. I mean, it's not forgotten, trust me.
I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Any council members, any other questions? Thank you, Tom. And for those in the audience, we'll be voting on this at the regular meeting in just a few minutes. Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate it. Good job as usual. And thank the board for us too. Appreciate it. No, before we take a break, I want to see if anybody in the audience has a question for Tom or for the council members. Okay, Vince, go ahead, come on up. Now I'm going to be in trouble with Leslie. I didn't start with the Zoom, so sorry, Leslie. I owe you one. Go ahead, Vince.
Good afternoon, Council. Vince Strepkowski, Columbia Street. Tom, I was just wondering if the bonds are completed for paying the Justice Center, or is there no more time on that?
Come on up.
Yeah, there's still several more years, I think about 10 years left of bond payments on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else in the audience? All right, next to Zoom, with due apologies to Leslie Windless there. I promised her I would do Zoom first, so anybody on Zoom that would like to comment?
Oh, she's just laughing.
Sorry?
She's just laughing. She
I know, I
doesn't
see
have her
that,
hands
I see that. Anybody else on Zoom that would like to comment?
up. Not on Zoom.
I do see Tim Emery there, so Tim, thank you very much for all the work that you guys are doing, appreciate it. He's the TIFA chair, obviously. Anybody else in the, so here, come on up.
Good evening, Zuhair Abdelhad, 354 Rosemary. You approved TIFA's budget during the budget hearing. Why it's coming back again for approval? They approved it, I assume, before you put it in the budget and you approved it.
Well,
Is
this-
there any difference between the budget you approved and the city budget and what they are supposing now?
Question?
Hello, everyone. Again, as you know, when we presented the TIFA budget,
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you do me a favor, just state
I
your name and who
apologize.
you are.
Mariana Hernandez, Chief of Staff, City of Dearborn Heights. And I live on Lafayette as well. But yes, as I was saying, when we presented the budget, the only portion of the budget that we as a city approved was those items that are absolutely necessary for us to have in our budget. For example, the debt payments or salaries for the employees that work in the TIFA department. All of the projects are new. So that's something that the TIFA board determines and approves, and then it comes to us. Once it's approved by the council, it will be amended and included in our overall budget once again.
Council Chair?
Okay, just one second. Does that answer you? Let's just make sure the residents also.
Yes, I just want to make sure that there will be budget amendment for what she just said.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Hold on one second. Anybody on Zoom, Madam
Well, it's
Clerk?
regarding this same question, Council.
Okay, no, I'm gonna let you. I just want to make sure somebody else. Okay, go ahead, Councilman.
And just maybe Tom can give us a quick breakdown, because I know initially he brought that into my attention as well, that it was on the budget. But, you know, if we can just hear a little bit from Tom on that, if that's okay, Council Chair.
Well, I guess just the easiest way to say it's something new this year, the way it was done just differently. It needs to be, by law, it needs to be approved by the TIFA board, it needs to be approved by the city council. It was decided to do it in a different order and different ways this year. It's, I
Well,
guess
the
it's
TIFA board
different,
approved it
so-
and the council approved it.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, the TIFA board approved it and sent it to the council for concurrence, the full budget. You needed certain numbers in your budget. So that's why I'm told those numbers were included in there. So it's just, I guess it's just a different way of doing it than in the past. But it is up to you to approve the TIFA budget in full. So.
Okay, come on up.
Council Chair, I was also going to make,
You want to go before?
just as a comment
Yeah, let's
to
see what she's
what,
got, and then we'll have
what
you go
Tom
next.
was saying, actually.
All right, no problem. Go ahead.
We need to also recognize that even though TIFA is a related entity, that it is a separate legal entity. And essentially, certain things in terms of them being able to approve the budget is based on numbers that they get from us that they did not have at the time, which is in turn why it's submitted later in the process, because they don't have the full tax increment information. And Tom could correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I believe that's part of the reason.
Yeah, along those lines, really quick, it just, we don't get our final tax capture estimates till after the March Board of Review is complete, so those numbers come in sometime in the first week of April. So, then, by the time we get that, are able to put together into the budget, our very next meeting is our May meeting, and then that's why then it's approved and then sent to the city council. According to the TIFA, bylaws and the TIFA Act, technically, it says in there that we need to have our budget completed and in place by our annual meeting, which is the second week of July, although it doesn't make sense because our budget starts July 1st, so we always have it completed by June. So that way, as we get to July 1, we're all in place, so.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. Go ahead, Mariana.
Hello, sorry. So to clarify the amendment portion, again, once you approve and concur with this budget, that serves as the amendment to our budget, because you are now approving the full TIFA budget. And it does say, the first sentence, enclosed is the 2022-2023 TIFA budget that was approved at the TIFA board meeting on May 11th, 2022, and is now forwarded to your honorable body for concurrence.
I just want to make sure that we're in compliance.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mariana. Anybody else in regards to the TIFA budget? All right, hearing none. So at this particular point, for those in the audience, we're going to go ahead and start our regular council meeting. We've been in 2 meetings back to back, so we're going to take a 5-minute break and then start our regular meeting. Thank you.